Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. If you have, if you're able to show us your video, that would be great. And we will get started in just a minute. A couple more people rolling in. Let's get together and feel Perfect. Awesome. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are get started and dive right in. So I'm super excited for today's webinar because I'm co-hosting with a good friend and colleague for over 20 years now. So super excited that you guys could all make it. Thank you for taking the time out, and we'll dive right into it. So today we're talking about leadership through a pandemic. Leadership has been a challenging situation. Leaders, all put your hand up if you agree with me. If it's been a little bit challenging and a little bit tricky. I've got some great friends on here. I'm so excited to see you, Najat and Christine, Danielle. Thank you so much all for being here. Leadership through a pandemic has definitely pushed us to be either better leaders, or some of us have, shied away and not sure what to do and how to lead through this because it's been so challenging. And so today we're going to give you a couple of tips to be able to be better for ourselves, but also be better for the people and the teams that we're leading. And so we'll dive right into it. So our goal today is to be able to share some best practices in leadership, but also giving you tools that you can practice within your environment right away. So, everybody's environment is so different. So we want you to be able to understand, how important your role is as a leader within the organization. But the other thing I would like to really for you to walk away with is that you don't necessarily have to have a leadership title to be a leader in your organization. So depending on who's watching and where you are within your organization, please keep that in mind, is that it doesn't take a title to really be a leader. It's about the acts of courage and really the direction that you want to be able to lead your team in. So we're going to dive into a little bit of human needs today. That's an old school practice, human needs. Those of you that know me know that I've kind of practiced that for many years, but understanding our human needs and how it relates to business today, how it relates to leadership today. And we're going to share six steps to lead during this pandemic. We're also then going to dive out into breakout rooms, and breakout rooms will just give us an opportunity to chat a little bit more and to answer some more questions, but more importantly, it'll allow us to be a little bit vulnerable and how we can be better leaders, because really that's where we can stretch, right? As soon as we can be a little bit vulnerable and maybe analyze a little bit of our own leadership style in this safe space, it allows us to kind of to change and shift and be better. We're going to do a quick wrap up around 12:15. So the last couple, by request, I should say, all of our webinars have been going now about an hour and a half, just because people are wanting that extra time in those breakout rooms. So if you do have to leave earlier, we understand, but we're wrapping up around 12:15, and after that, we'll take any questions if we need. But please feel free to ask and put your hand up as we're working through this. We want it to be interactive, and we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to kind of discuss. We've just been finding, we did the 60-minute sessions, and it always, the conversations went great. So we just thought, well, let's give ourselves a little more time. All right, so let me introduce you to Melissa Bishop. As I mentioned, Melissa and I have worked together for years, and now she's in a new role. And so she's the Director of Customer Experience Retail Operations for Eastern Canada with Michael Hill. So Melissa, I'll pass it over if you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So welcome, everybody. I'm excited to be here today and have the opportunity to work with Crystal and share some insights as to what works and how can we be better leaders during this pandemic and during this trying time. And we're all in it together, and that's the one thing we need to remember. So leaning on our support teams and our support groups in order to learn and grow and just get through this as best we can, and as humble leaders, and to make sure that we're supporting our teams. That's the most important thing. So brief history on me: born, bred, and raised in retail. It's been the lifeline of me. So started out with the Reitman's Group when I was super young. moved into Danier, where I started out at store level, grew into the training capacity, and then ended as director of operations for all of Canada. From there, moved to Sears, which was a bit of a jump. So wanted to kind of stretch my wings and grow a little bit outside of the fashion world. So thought going to department store would be the way to go. And I was in charge of all 4 banners under Sears for big ticket. So anything commission related. So cosmetics, furniture, mattresses, major appliances, all that fun stuff. So, and then we know what happened with Sears. And from there was time to regroup. I had been partnered, I guess, with Michael Hill for a long time. So Brett Halliday, who was running the Canadian operations, him and myself often did workshops together with our leadership teams while I was with Danier. So it eventually became the right fit and the right time for me to come on board with Michael Hill. And that was 3 years ago. And so again, started out at the regional level and then worked my way up to now I have over half of Canada. So
that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Melissa. It's been a really nice journey to even, from our working relationship when we were teenagers to now to see the transition in retail. So I'm excited that you're here. For those of you that don't know me, I'll just do a brief introduction of myself. Crystal DeCuna, the Chief Experience Officer at the Inside View. We started the Inside View about 5 years ago. Super excited that we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary. But I really focus on all things customer experience design. So everything from igniting your leaders to exciting your employees and delighting your customers. The goal is to really make sure that that everybody in the organization is happy at any given time. And so that's a challenging task for sure, especially during these challenging times. But my background, again, coming from retail, I also have a strong background in construction in the home building industry. And through my years of experience, what I realized is that I actually had a system. I didn't realize the system until I needed to realize the system. But what I realized is that the success of what I was doing and how I was able to be successful with teams was there was a clear system to it. And so I'm going to share some of those systems with you today. But let's keep moving and feel free again to ask any questions and unmute yourself as you feel fit. So I wanted to kind of, before we're getting into a leadership conversation, I wanted to make sure that, everybody's kind of clear on what the leader's role is. I think often people's view of a leader's role is, I got to make sure that things are organized. I got to get the schedule done. I have to make sure that payroll is in. I have to make sure, anybody agree with me? Hands up if you agree with me. Those things are all important. Right? I need to make sure operations are organized. But the one thing I've learned through all the years of working with teams is that a leader's role is to create an environment, right? Our number one goal is to create an environment where people feel cared about, people are able to thrive, people feel confident in the job that they're doing, they have the autonomy to make decisions with people, but it's about the overarching environment. Najette is on the call. Najette, I'm going to call you out. Sorry, my friend. I have to use her as an example because she, when I first met Najette a few years ago, the environment that I walked into was infectious. And Najette runs a company in Oakville, and the color of the company is yellow, and so you walk in and it's already giving you this environment of happiness and joy. And then they've got food for people, they've got drinks for people, they've got even coupons for people to get lunch. She's got in her back billboard, so if somebody wants to run in and grab a lunch and wants a coupon, they can take. It's just an environment that cultivates a really successful culture. And so I think that's really important. I think often in a leadership role we forget that it's about the environment where people are going to be successful. So take that away today, is that looking back at yourself and your leadership style or your organization, if you're somebody who's going towards a leadership role, how can you cultivate a culture of success through your environment? And the environment appeals to your senses. So sense of sight, sense of sound, smell, touch, taste, all of that. Okay, so Melissa, go ahead and pop in whenever you feel, but
Yep.
we're going to dive into the human needs here. So, for those of you that are familiar, Maslow's hierarchy of human needs is definitely not a new school principle. I don't know, I want to say that was like 1800s. I don't really know how long ago it was, but it was a really long time ago. And so Maslow's hierarchy of needs resonates more today than ever before. But number one is certainty. To feel safe, secure, and comfort, to feel certain that we could avoid pain and attain pleasure. And so certainty is something, as a leader, are we able to create some certainty within our environment? And I'm going to deep dive in all of these a little bit later, but I just want to give you that overarching, what are these six human needs? So number one is creating certainty. Number two is variety, as they say, right? Variety is the spice of life. To experience an element of challenge or surprise that will exercise our physical and emotional range, right? We need a little bit of that variety. And so, as you know, in the last 6 months, so many of us have been doing these Zoom calls, and we have to keep them spicy, right? Because that otherwise they get challenging. I know my friend Christine, who's on here today, I just saw a post from her yesterday that she was on a call where there was Disney backgrounds all over the place. Like, that was variety. That was it was exciting for me to even see the picture, right? So I think it's really important for us to understand how that little bit of surprise element, that there's also, giftology, that little bit of just something a little bit different creates an energy, creates an experience, and creates a better connection for human needs. So variety is definitely an important one. Significance. And in a work environment, I would say significance is probably the one I go to the most. Melissa, I feel like you'd agree with me here.
Absolutely. It is our greatest strength is in our people and how they feel and how they contribute to the organization, and just feeling special. And just like quick side note on that, just we had the ability, we do a global conference every year with Michael Hill, but obviously the world has come to a screeching halt, and we can't travel, but making sure that we didn't lose sight of that and how we could make that work as leaders. So we actually did a virtual global conference where they still had their gala night, so they got all of but everything was virtual, so they got all their conference stuff that they need heading into what is Q2 for us. And then we actually did a gala night, so they got dressed, we sent champagne to their houses, and gift certificates to get cheese and crackers and all of that, and noisemakers, and we just made it a virtual event where we could still celebrate, although 2020 was not what we thought it would be, celebrating the success that we had up until the store closures. So it was a great way to show that we care and come together.
Yeah, and that's what people need right now, right? They want to know. When I think of significance, I feel like people need to be able to know that their effort makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's a human need to feel significant. They want to be able to know that, hey, all this effort that I'm putting in to try to adjust and adapt to this new world, new customer, new team environment, hey, is it making a difference, right? That human connection. Actually, this virtual conference stuff has been going pretty cool. We're doing we're doing an unconference with a group I belong to too. We're sending jerk chicken to people's houses because it's an African Caribbean event,
Yeah.
and like, it's cool, right? People are gonna feel totally important and appreciated, and so this is the big one. All right, love and connection. This is important. And actually, I tie this back to one of our programs. It's called Lovesick Leadership, because as a leader, Simon Sinek, those of you that have watched The Golden Circle, which is probably the #1 most popular video on YouTube, he talks about this concept of lovesick leadership and how we want our children. We would always want our children or our family to do better than us, to go well beyond us, to go further than we could ever go. And so why is it that in a work environment, sometimes that's not the case, right? In a work environment, we always want our teams to do better, and we have to be lovesick about that. We have to make sure that there's that connection. I relate this back to my Danier days a lot too. We moved from store to store to store, and I always had great teams. And I'm confident now that the reason I was successful was that I was always looking at my frontline team saying, I can't wait to see you doing what I'm doing. I can't wait to see you training other team members. I can't wait to, and it was not about, it was not about being worried about somebody taking your job. It was about so passionate and excited to see people thrive and develop, from a teenager just coming in as their first job to being, running a multi-million dollar store. Like, that was exciting. And that was because there was a connection there that was emotionally based.
Well, making sure you're working yourself out of a job, like you're,
Yeah.
like we said, like it's the people that make the difference. So they should want to grow and thrive, and we want them to be better than us.
For sure. For sure. Growth. So to consistently develop intellectual and emotionally, and spiritually, if we are not growing, we are dying. I think this is with our, especially as leaders in organizations, this has pushed us so much during COVID, that we need to be able to grow and develop. We can't just stay stagnant. So, are we looking for new opportunities in sales development? Are we looking in new opportunities of type of staff that we need? Like, it's just a ever evolving growth tree in this case. Lastly, contribution, to go beyond our own needs, right? We want to be able to make sure that, again, this relates to our effort making a difference, but people have a human need to feel that they're able to contribute, whether it's to another organization or to our own organization, but they need to know that everything that they're doing has a greater purpose and a greater power. And so, as I wrap up these kind of 6 human needs, now we're going to be able to kind of connect it to how we do this in leadership today. But, making sure we have a good understanding of whether we like it or not, these are the things that people need in organizations today. So every one of your staff members, I would suggest a great tool and tip that I used to do was taking these 6 human needs, almost making a little chart of it, and writing the names of all my staff along the top and saying, okay, how can I be better for them in this particular human need? How can our environment or our work environment be better for them in this particular human need? And you'll start to see areas of opportunity for yourself, also areas of opportunity that they may not even realize that they could do better. And so there's an opportunity there for you to really evaluate. It's almost like having a report card for yourself. All right, let's dive into our six takeaways from a leadership perspective. And so, when we relate back to certainty, driven by your vision, mission, core values, and CX promise. And so, Melissa, I'll kind of hand it over to you in this, is that,
Yep.
Michael Hill, tell us a little bit about your vision, mission, and your CX promise, and how you've really thrived through this pandemic with that.
Yeah, so our promise is really to create a high performance, high trust culture that's open, honest, and committed to excellence. So that's our overarching promise to our customers. And don't forget, your customer is your staff, but it's also the external customer coming in. So we serve everyone as leaders, and we need to always keep that in mind. So how do we bring that vision and mission and values to life with our teams and also the customers that we deal with, or our clients that we're dealing with? So we have 4 values that drive everything we do. So if we're making a decision, we have to link it back to our 4 core values. And if it doesn't tick the boxes of all 4, then we got to go back to the drawing board and make sure that we build something or create something or launch something that's going to deliver on the mission and values of the organization. So ours are all linked around human touch and that human connection. So we sell jewelry. So obviously we share in some very significant life milestones, and marriage and births of babies and divorce presents and you name it. So we're sharing in something significant for people. So our values are: we care, we create outstanding experiences, we are professional, and we're inclusive and diverse. So again, linking all of those, but they're all human elements. So whether it's a process or a connection with the customer, we need to make sure that we're living those every single day.
That's awesome. And it actually reminds me, Melissa, of of how I'm able to kind of incorporate those with a lot of different organizations. I actually call you, so your 4 pillars, other organizations have 4, 6, 3,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. But with one organization I worked with, again, I want to give you guys some tangible tools here. What we did is we took those pillars and we made sure that they were very visible in our boardroom with check boxes beside it. And so in the boardroom, every time we had those decision-making conversations, if it didn't check 3 of the 4 pillars, we didn't do it. And it was a visual. It wasn't just a conversation, but it was a visual. So we talked about it. Did it meet in that particular organization? It was, did it meet our safety pillar? Did it meet our revenue pillar? Like that's how, there was a little while ago when revenue was like a top priority, right? Did it meet our business goals? And so we checked off the 3. And if it didn't, there was many things that we said, okay, it's almost there. It's 2 out of the 4. Let's go back to the drawing board, see how we can make sure that, and massage it so that it aligns with our pillars, and then bring it back. So that visual representation was really key.
Yeah, and just on that visual, it needs to be everywhere, because if not, it goes away. So, and how do you always link? So even just, when the regionals and stuff do store visits, they have to link their SMART goals and their actions that they're leaving a store to do to one of the values, so that it's constantly brought to life. And they have like many little posters that they keep in their suit pockets. So there's just that constant check and balance to make sure, to your point, it's not just words on a page. You're actually making sure that you're using it every single day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One more tip I like to share with this one is called the 8-on-8 huddle. I know some of you know this about me. I've mentioned it before, but this is a great place to make sure that your 8-on-8 huddle is able to practice vision, mission, core values, and CX promise. So what is an 8-on-8 huddle? It's, let's spend 8 minutes every day planning, talking, discussing, finding out where challenges are for our 8-hour day. And so it's a really great tool. I actually got it from the Ritz-Carlton. 1-800-GOT-JUNK has a great video on this, so if you're able to hop on and check it out. But the idea is, instead of having long drawn out meetings, once or twice a month, it's like, I only want 8 minutes. I'll lead, and it doesn't have to be your leader that's actually running these huddles. It can be people within the organization. And the huddle is connecting things back to, okay, what is, how did Susie live her CX promise? Or congratulations, Susie, we got a great customer comment, and it aligns so well with our vision and our mission. And so this is a great opportunity for you to even test your team. All right, Noah, give us our 5 pillars, and he would recite them. And so the cool thing is you're able to really connect your team back to what our goal is, so that it's not just, a vision that's put on the wall and nobody really looks at it. The other point to this is it avoids a lot of emails back and forth. Sometimes with organizations, you've got, this leadership chain, there's five emails going back and forth. Well, if you're meeting daily for an 8 minutes, you're able to say, hey, Kimberly, what happened there? Did you end up getting paid for that? Yes, I did. Okay, perfect. No more emails, right? Like, it's like you're able to solve problems really, really quickly. And you're also able to come to solutions really quickly because you're not going through this constant email battle. So last thing though, is that the CX promise, I think, is really important here. I look at a company like Warby Parker. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Warby Parker. They sell glasses, and their CX promise, you have to go on their website and check it out. It's pretty cool. But they have an overarching CX promise of delivering value in the glasses that they share. So for example, they've got designer glasses at phenomenal prices, but they also are sharing an extra pair of glasses with people that are less fortunate when you buy glasses, kind of like the Tom's idea, where they share shoes with the less fortunate. So that's part of their CX promise, and they communicate that through their social media, through everything they do all the time. Melissa, any last words before I move on to the next?
I think you nailed it.
Fantastic. Any questions, guys? If you have questions, feel free to put up your hand and questions, comments, and we can continue to go through this. All right, so next is don't be afraid to reset. And so this is where I bring in variety as our human need. Often organizations are so used to doing things a certain way. Would you agree? Hands up if you agree. We're so used to doing things a certain way. And I know this really well living here in Niagara. We have, a strong foundation of businesses that have been around for 20, 30 years. And they have a certain way of doing it. Their leadership style has been passed down from generation to generation. And it's just, it's working, Crystal. We live in Niagara. People are always going to come to us. So why do we need to change it? And perhaps you don't. There's certain things you certainly don't need to change, right? If it's not broken, don't fix it. But we just went through a global pandemic. And so I think we all need to change and shift a little bit. And so this is an opportunity for us to be able to press that reset button and create some variety here. We just launched a CX Mastery program. And in that program, it's all about resetting things. It's all about saying, hey, you've maybe been doing things this way for so long, but let's take a look at another way of doing it. You've wanted to do it this way. You've wanted to be better leadership. You've wanted to incorporate coaching into your daily practices. You've wanted to be able to hire a certain way and onboard a certain way. Well, what's stopping you? Now is the time to do this, because now is an opportunity for a 20-year-old organization to be able to reset itself, right? Melissa, tell us a little bit about how you've incorporated this in Michael Hill.
Yeah, this was, although none of us saw it coming when March came and the world came crashing down and we thought we were going on a 2-week hiatus, which turned into 3 months. It definitely gave us as a leadership team the ability. We get stuck on the hamster wheel, as Crystal said, like, stuff's working, everything's okay. We know there's stuff that's broken, but it's still okay. We're doing okay. And we just get caught in the day-to-day. And having the pandemic happen and taking a step back and not having to deal with the day-to-day because there was no operations happening actually gave us a unique opportunity, which we'll never get back again, to actually press pause, hold up the mirror, reflect on every aspect of the business. So breaking down those silos, we're based out of, we started in New Zealand. We also have, so that's where Sir Michael's from. He's a real person. We've been around for 40 years. So New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. So Canada is the baby, but having the ability as global leaders to break down those silos and work together, cross-functionally to improve the areas of the business that we knew were broken, but that you would never have time and you would never be able to do what we did working together as leaders to fix those areas. It would have just happened in those work groups, and whether it would be right or wrong, but we were able to collaborate and push each other and really challenge the status quo. And is this really the best thing? And there was some stuff we're like, why are we still doing this? It's because we did it for 40 years, but no one ever, and everyone's like, it's not relevant anymore. So it was just it was a perfect way to reset, and you just can't be afraid to do that. And it's something that Crystal and I, we would do at Danier all the time. You just, every quarter, you need to really hold the mirror up and reflect on what's working, what's not working, and then tackle one thing. Just tackle one thing, because if you put 10 things on your list, you're going to get nothing done because it's too overwhelming. But just find, every quarter, chunk it out. What's the, top 5 things that are bugging you, and then pick the one that you're going to go after and fix and do it right and do it well.
Actually, it reminded me of a story one time, Melissa. I was at our Vaughan Mills location, Danier location, and it was raining. It was pouring rain outside, and it was like summertime. But it started pouring rain. And so I went off the beaten path, right? Because at a corporate store, you're supposed to follow the marketing plan and you're not supposed to change things. And while it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, I hadn't sold much and I was getting a little frustrated. So I changed my whole front table. I put the umbrellas that we had. I put any jackets with a hood up there. And I was like, okay, let's just hope nobody walks in from head office to see what I've done. And of course, somebody walks in from head office to see what I've done. And my boss at the time, she says, Crystal, what did you do here? I said, well, it's raining, it's this, it's that. And I'm like trying to make all these excuses. And she said, she just kind of had a straight face and she took a couple pictures. She's like, let me see your sales. I'm like, well, we've done really good since 2:00. Like we've sold 6 jackets, like everything, right? Because we did do good as soon as I changed it. So she was just like even keel. And then she took that picture and she mailed it to the whole company. She's like, everybody change your front tables. right? Like everybody change your tables right now. Not to the company, but I think it was all of Ontario, wherever it was raining.
Yeah.
Change your tables now. And then at the end of the next morning, she told me, she's like, Crystal, because we reset, because we adjusted and pivoted, the whole organization did well yesterday. And so it was that little example of sometimes, you need to change and shift and go off the beaten path, and really have confidence that you know what you're doing, and that there's a reason. Now, it doesn't work in every case. Sometimes people go off too much, but I think that for me was a great example of okay, we need to spice things up sometimes to make sure that we're satisfying our customer's need, right? At that given moment, what was important to that customer right now was to have either an umbrella or a hood, right? All right, next is significance, to make a personal connection with your team individually or as a group. And so again, this is something Melissa and I relate to a lot in any type of organization. I'm talking a little bit of retail, but I've had this experience with online teams, with remote marketing teams, with the pharmaceutical teams. It's about whoever your team is, whether you're in a leadership role or whether you're a part of the team. It's important to be able to connect with them individually. And it's so challenging in this Zoom world because we're only able to connect with people through this, right? Through a screen. And making that time now, I can tell you that in the last 6 months, I've used my phone, like actual phone, 100 times more than I have before because I was texting so many people. Now I picked up the phone and I said, listen, I just wanted to talk to somebody. I wanted to talk to you instead of seeing you on the screen, right? And then we have these great conversations. It has nothing to do with business, but we're able to kind of communicate just a little bit better. And so as a leader, or even if you're within within your team, how can you develop those personal connections? Melissa, can you share a little bit about some of the coaching techniques that we're used to?
Yes, I can. Well, and just it is about that personal connection and stepping away from the business aspect of it. The business aspect's there. We talk about it all the time. We talk about it every day. But how do we do the small things that really mean the world to people? And it doesn't have to be monetary. So, sending a birthday message, sending a work anniversary message. Crystal and I love to do getting to know you sheets. So we learn about, people on our team. So you have that as a reference of, who are the kids, who are the husband, who's everybody. And then you can use those in your conversations and, relate. You can even relate coaching conversations to like work, real life stuff that they would be dealing with at home if they have kids and things like that. So, but it's just thinking outside the box and really how do you get to know them as a person versus a employee.
So important, so important. Actually, those getting to know you sheets were fantastic. So it doesn't matter the size of your organization, small or large. Like I've got a three-person team and it's a small team, but a sheet like a getting to know your sheet is really great because you can know, like I know about Scott and his family, and I know their names. Noah's on our call today as well, and he's part of our team. I know that he likes to golf, and I know that his birthday was just the other day. And so you're able to really kind of connect and make those personal connections when you know about it. Now, you could have a team of 10 and think, well, I know everybody. Well, you might, which over time, absolutely. But it's those little special days, those little nuances that when they tell you, you might forget, right? Like they might tell you and it's not that you don't have any intention, a good intention, but it's, making note of those things. Really, really important to be able to kind of go back to and filter through in your coaching conversations.
Yeah. And also finding out how do they like to be recognized and rewarded and spoken to and coached. And you can find out all of those communication styles because it's not a one size fits all at all. You need to make sure that you are talking to everyone, or some people like public praise, some people don't. So, don't call them out in your huddle if they're going to get embarrassed and shrivel up. You need to, just send them a thank you note or give them a thank you email or give them a high five in the back room, away from everybody else, because that's what they like and that's what's going to make them thrive and feel important and special. And also, like, what's their top? Chris and I are big on gifts and sending gifts, surprise gifts. So, what's their favorite you know, restaurant, so all of that's on my sheet. It's just a one-page sheet, but I have it as a reference. So if I'm giving a prize, or I'm sending someone a special secret, just, hey, good job, I know what's going to be meaningful to them, and I'm not just sending them a blanket gift card for somewhere where they're never going to go and it's going to sit in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, perfect. And to this, I'll also share is, personal and purposeful. I think that's the goal here, is make your connections purposeful and personal. I'd also like to point out here, and I have this conversation often with, I would say, like, teams in the like 30 to 100 team member group. I have this conversation a lot. And so it's Crystal, we're so busy. The last time I had a coaching conversation was 6 months ago. Or, oh, we don't really do coaching. We coach them all the time. We don't have a structured coaching plan. My friends, it doesn't matter the size of your organization, but making the time to sit one-on-one personally with each one of your team members, I'd say once a month at minimum. At Dania, we did it once a week. You know what I mean? But it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Remember, your job is a leader. So that is the most important part of your job, is to connect with your people one-on-one for that 20 minutes, at 15 minutes. I mean, start small, but it's important. Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just do a coffee chat. Like, just give them that time. Like, everyone goes for coffee. So just come walk with me and we're going to go get a coffee. So,
yeah.
But it's just, you have to, they're the most important, because without them, the businesses, whatever business you're in, doesn't run. So we need to be giving them that attention and that feedback and that time. Like Crystal said, weekly, daily, monthly, whatever works, but just start somewhere and make a commitment to do it.
And I would also say in here is that it has to be, I would recommend for it to be scheduled. So if you're somebody like, Melissa, in a retail environment, it might be a little bit easier because you're walking to a coffee shop. But in a lot of our organizations that I see on the call today, it's got to be in your schedule. Maybe it's not necessarily in their schedule. Maybe they don't necessarily have a plan. If they can, that would be great, because it creates clarity and confidence, and they can know, like, hey, next time I sit down with Christine, I got to bring this up. Or next time, Najette and I have a conversation, I want to let her know that this, so they're prepared and ready. And it also makes them feel significant. If you're talking about a frontline staff member who feels like, well, I never really get time with my boss. This is like, ooh, they want to talk to me. They want my opinion. They want to know how I like that new rollout. They want to know how I like that new product or service. They want to know how I might be able to contribute to their hiring and onboarding process. Like, these are things that make people feel significant. Now, you don't necessarily have to use all that. If you do, great on you. You're using your voice of employee data. It's fantastic. But you have to let them feel, and authentically and transparently, you have to make them feel a part of the team. So. All right, let's keep things moving here. Have courage. So connecting this to love and connection. Hey, my friends, this has been a really challenging few months, and we've all had to be courageous. We've all had to have courage more now than ever before. And so as a leader, I think it's important to have those, I want to say, almost lovesick leadership conversations, because that's kind of how we do it, is sometimes as a leader, we feel like we have to have these conversations that are so structured and about business and about, the issue at hand or their performance. Sometimes we just need to have conversations that are emotionally connected and not connected and driven by the business, that are connected and driven by them as people, and to be able to have those are courageous conversations, because that means it's taking time out of your day, and we know how overloaded your days are. And so it's taking the time to make that type of connection. Melissa, go ahead. I know you've got things that you're thinking about with this one.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, it's connecting the mind and the heart, and just being that thoughtful leader that will, take time out from the business side of things and talk to, if someone's having trouble in their life, just being that listener. We have to put on the counselor hat sometimes and just be the therapist or the counselor and listen and allow that safe environment to be themselves and open up. We're with our work peers and colleagues, usually more so, not now, but more so than our family for the most part, when we are able to connect, not from a virtual world. So just, yeah, just having that courage to be open and vulnerable and create a safe environment for the team to do the same.
Yeah, I find with courage, it sounds like an easy principle to practice, but I know it's really difficult sometimes because that means you have to be vulnerable. You have to kind of break yourself out of yourself, and sometimes you're thinking, okay, well, I am strong. I'm a strong leader. I know what I'm. You may be, but do you have the courage to share your past experiences, or do you have the courage to share your failures? There's a story I tell all the time. When I worked in the home building industry, I had sold one of my first houses, and I was so excited because I was like, "Oh my God, I just sold like a $700,000 house," and I didn't even know what like an eavesdroft was, and I sold a house. I was like so excited, and so I put all the paperwork in, and this lady that I sold it to, she's still a friend of mine actually. One of the most important things to her was that this house had rounded corners. You guys know what I mean by rounded corners? Like all throughout the house, they're not like a sharp corner; they're a rounded corner. She loved it in the model home. She loved everything about it. And I was like, well, this particular house, this particular community, that's a standard feature because that's what I was told. I was told it was a standard feature in the homes. Like, I mean, nothing else was important to her but these rounded corners. Like, she loved the fact that they were rounded corners. So I knew that was important to her. And so I sold the home. I did everything, all the paperwork I knew that I needed to do. And it came, I think we were like 3 weeks away from move-in, and she came down, and I said, come, let me take you through the house. I'm so excited to show you through. Like, it's not finished yet, but let's go through a walkthrough. And the first thing she noticed was that the corners weren't rounded. And that was actually the first thing I noticed. And then she noticed it. And I was like, oh, what do I do? The house is almost built. It's painted. It's all done. And the corners aren't rounded. And she was so disappointed. Like, she was just so disappointed. And I said, well, let me figure out what I can do here. Like, again, keeping in mind that I've only been in construction for 6 months at this point, right? So I was like, I thought they were just going to be round. Well, what happened was in that particular location, that particular community, rounded corners was a standard feature, but you had to put in a separate schedule into the deal to make sure that rounded corners actually happened. And so I didn't know that. That wasn't communicated to me. And so I had to, go back to my boss and say, she needs rounded corners. What do we do now? Well, if you can imagine in an entire home that's built to redo rounded corners, you have to shave off the corner. You have to tape the corner. You then have to redo all the baseboards to align with the corner. You have to redo the trim on the top of the house to align with it. So, and you have to repaint it. I had to have the courage to have that conversation, but I also had to, relate it back to, we did it. We did the whole thing. She moved it on moving day, and her whole house was rounded corners. That mistake was cost the company probably about $6,000 to redo that. It's a mistake I've learned from because that was about 10 years ago now, and I haven't forgot it. But connecting it back to having the courage, like there's a lot of other ways I could have handled that, right? A lot of other ways that could have gone down. She could have just been, dealt with it, and we could have given her credit, and that's how most organizations would have taken it. But I really had to have the courage to understand, like, okay, wait a minute, I promised this, and I went to bat for it, and I actually financially contributed as well because I knew that this was something that was kind of my fault, but also kind of the fault of the people that were training at the time, right? So it kind of comes all full circle, but I guess just having the courage to step up is important. All right, let's keep things moving. I know we're good. We're a little good for time, but I want to keep things moving along here. We got 2 more steps to go through. Melissa, let's talk about this one. Communicate with confidence, clarity, and transparency. Relating this back to the growth within organizations. So tell us a little bit about how you do this.
Absolutely. Well, communication is key. So making sure that, and being transparent. So the teams, regardless of what walk of life you're in, they need to know the why in everything that we do. So you need to get their buy-in, and the only way we can get their buy-in is by giving them the why and being transparent with why a decision was made or why we're doing what we're doing, so that they can be champions of change and go on that journey with us. If we don't have that that breeds, you know, the opposite of, growth and everything that we're looking for, because they don't know, then they're talking negatively. It's that self-doubt. But really, how do we communicate with confidence and build succession plans really on how we can get people to the next level, and whether that's, just through another role or just growth within the role that they're in. How do we, because that's succession as well. So it's not always about going from, this job to this job and getting a promotion, but how do we build their confidence? How do we give them that clarity within the role that they're in and make them that much better through some form of succession? So, training, coaching, love, development, whatever that is, just allowing them that growth, and that opportunity for growth within, the role that they have, as well as getting them to the next level if that's what they choose to do.
Mm-hmm. When I think of this, I think a lot about expectation alignment. I think sometimes employees have an expectation of their leaders and of the company, and I think leaders have an expectation of the employee, and sometimes they're misaligned. And so, for example, a company might say, or a person, an employee might say, "Ooh, I was talking to Joe, and Joe got an extra bonus at the end of the year for Christmas, and he got $1,000 bonus, and so if I do my job and I meet my numbers, great, I'll get that bonus too." But what happened? But perhaps the leadership teams, well, Joe got that bonus because he met his targets, and he met his targets by this much. And so all of a sudden there's this misalignment of expectations, because an employee believes that he's going to get this, and the leadership believes, well, I need him to do this. Well, has that ever been communicated? Right. So it's that communication alignment that's really important. I see this a lot when we're hiring people, and a lot of organizations are hiring full throttle right now. A lot of organizations are saying goodbye. And so, if you're saying goodbye, are you saying goodbye for now because I really want you to come back? How are you communicating that? And one thing I'll touch on with communication here is that, especially in this virtual world or this telecommunication world that we're now in, 7% of the words that you're speaking are what people will actually understand and remember. 7%. 33% is the tone that you're using, and 55% is the body language. Well, how do you communicate body language if you're not in front of them? So making sure that you're using like the Zoom platform or any type of platforms that you're able to actually, share your body language through the screen, share your tone through the screen, makes a huge, huge impact in how they're actually receiving the communication that you're giving. The other thing with transparency here and clarity and confidence, people want to know what the next step is. And so being able to communicate consistently is really important. Think of you in a customer situation where, you're curious, when is that package going to arrive, or how come it didn't get here? Or if you're traveling in an airport and you're wondering what time that flight is, why am I delayed? People just want to know. So as much as you can kind of get ahead of that problem or challenge or whatever it might be, and communicate like, okay, it's going to be 10 more minutes, or okay, I don't have an answer for you, but I promise you're on my top priority list. And then the next day you're still able to communicate, I still don't have an answer for you, but sometimes people don't want to communicate until they have an answer. And I think it's important that you're getting ahead of that. Listen, I just want to know what's going on. I just want to know. It's just as important for you as it is for me. Would you agree?
I agree. Taking them on that journey and keeping them abreast of everything, whether it's customer or your team, every step of the way, and not, always waiting for the answer. Because if we're always waiting for the answer and we're relying on other people, sometimes that answer doesn't come. And, but we need to be, confident and transparent that we've kept everyone informed as to what's going on. So
yeah. And it's the littlest things. I had a meeting yesterday. I was so excited. It was like my first out of office meeting that I've had in like forever. And it was in Stony Creek. Actually, it was the client that I was visiting. She has an office in Grimsby that I visited many times. And but they just opened a new office in Stony Creek. So it's like 11 minutes down the street. And so when she sent me the meeting request, she didn't put the address. She put our new office in Stony Creek. And so I thought, okay, I assumed that they renovated the office. I didn't know it was a whole new office. She didn't put the address down. And so I got to the address. She's like, Crystal, where are you? I said, I'm where I always am to visit you. She's like, oh, I told you our meeting was at our new office. I said, oh, I thought you meant like new, like newly renovated. I know it was new location. I didn't know, because Stony Creek and Grimsby are like right down the street. So I really thought it was the same office. Anyways, I was 15 minutes late because I had to get to the next office. So that's a great example of how communication is, we need to be really clear in our communication, because it can be so easily assumed, right? So easily assumed. All right, last step: contribution. Listen to understand, not to hear. This goes to the age-old saying, God gave us 2 ears for a reason. It's to be able to listen but understand. So this is where I like to practice a lot of active listening principles. And Melissa, I know you know lots about active listening. Do you want to go ahead and share some of how Michael Hill and your team practices this?
Yeah, the biggest thing here is we get so busy and so distracted, and there's instant messages popping up and text messages, and that we're never truly connected and listening. We say we are and we think we are, but we're never truly connected to a person one-on-one in front of us, because there's so many other distractions going on, and when's my next meeting, and where do I have to be next, and is it a Zoom call? Is it a Teams call? What am I doing? But making sure that with any of your people, that you're taking that time to commit to them. So whether it's face to face, or if we're doing a Zoom call or something, that you are committed to that person, and you turn off all other distractions. So put the phone away if it's a Zoom call. If you're with somebody and they come into your office, shut your computer and give them that undivided attention. They deserve it. And that's the only way that you're truly going to listen and hear what they're trying to say. And then through questioning, understand the message that they're trying to convey. So having that two-way open dialogue, but you need to stop the noise and make sure that for that 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, half hour, you're committed just to them.
Yeah, and I use the example, anybody on the call here have kids? Hands up if you have kids. Give me a hands up, kids. And do your kids ever talk to you and you're kind of like, yeah, does that ever happen? Come on, be honest. Does that ever happen? Hands up if that happens. I know it does. Come on. It happens to all of us, right? And you're like, yeah, yeah, sweetheart, no problem. I mean, I just did it this morning. Let's be honest, it happens. And so when it happens, it's like, wait a minute. And then the funniest thing is when I talk to him, or I'll say something to my son, and then he's like totally distracted. And I'm like, are you listening to me? He's not, right? And so it's like, how do we make sure that if we're starting to question something, when you start to have a two-way dialogue, that's when the active listening kind of takes place. So for example, if I'll say something to Zariq, who's my son, I'll say, what time is the game tomorrow? What time? He's like, and then he's like, Mom, did you see this new post? I'm like, wait a minute. I asked you a question. Did you listen to what I said? Right? This is the smallest example, but it's so true. Did you hear what I said? Yeah, I did. But did you see this? If he would have just asked me a question, which game? Or like if he would have just been able to have that two-way banter, that additional question, then I know he's listening. Then we can have a conversation. Not everything has to be a conversation, but enough to be able to say, okay, she's asking me a question because she hears me. Oprah always gives a really great example about this. She can interview, people from across the globe, no matter what their seniority or what their position. And she always says the number one question that people ask me is, was that okay? Was that okay? Did you listen? Did you hear me? Did the things that I was saying, was it okay? And it's so important and so true. And so, we all know we need to do this. This is not rocket science here. We all know we need to listen clearly, and we need to be able to communicate. It's not rocket science. It's nothing new. But it's how are we practicing this? So again, making a conscious decision as you as a leader, perhaps even when I used to make notes because I wasn't good at this in the beginning. And in my coaching conversations on my coaching log, I would put on there who, what, when, where, why, and how, so that at least as I was having a coaching conversation with somebody and these, we were going back and forth, I might throw in a question like, okay, how did that work out? Or tell me more about that. Or I'm really curious to know. And so it would give me some one-liners just to provoke myself to be a better listener, provoke myself to create some more conversations.
Well, it's that question answer support, right? So we ask a question, we listen for the answer, and then we support that answer. So, and that's where you can have those meaningful conversations, and it's not just noise or somebody leaves and you're like, oh, what did they just, ask me to do, tell me to do,
Yeah.
what just happened? Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So in a wrap up here, before we do our quick little breakout rooms, and I think we've gotten a couple of people, so we might just do it as a group because it's a small group here. So, what we want to leave you with is to be a leader, create an experience that delivers on your brand promise. We started off by saying that is understanding what your brand, your CX promise is, your vision, your missions, your core values, but understanding that your job is to create an environment and deliver an experience that actually delivers on that, not just to your external customer, but to your internal customer as well. Make it personal and make it purposeful. That connection, that time that you're able to spend with people, whether it's in a coaching conversation or whether it's just throughout day-to-day interactions, people want that personal connection. And then lastly is customer experience is the output and you control the inputs. And what I mean by customer, again, your internal and your external customer. But, that's the result. We want high levels of customer satisfaction. We want high levels of employee engagement. We want high levels of employee retention. We want, increased sales and increased revenue. Well, those are the outputs of great customer experience. And I mean internal in this case, but great internal customer experience. But you as a leader control all the inputs that go into that. So it's very unfair for us to expect a phenomenal customer experience if the inputs that we're putting in are not our best selves, are not part of these 6 tools and techniques that we just shared with you. So it's important to make sure that we're inputting those techniques and others, but those techniques to really make sure that we're getting that lasting change, a transformational change in leadership, and for us to be even stronger in leadership. All right, so we've got a small group here. Who do we have on here? Awesome, Danielle and Christine. So let's just have a quick conversation. So what are 3 areas that you would like to strengthen in yourself and perhaps in your organization? Welcome back, everybody. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and glad we got to deep dive in some good conversations. Melissa, thanks for doing some good coaching with us there. That was awesome. So let's wrap up. So thank you so much for being here. We have attached a survey. You'll actually receive a survey in the email following this webinar. We'd love your thoughts. We are excited because we've got a plethora of webinars that we're doing with solid content that's been really derived from your feedback. So we continue to need your feedback. And so we've got a webinar a week from now until the end of October, and really focusing on the challenges that business owners and leaders are facing in today's world. So please fill out the survey, continue to tell us how we can be better and what type of products and services that would be benefit for your business. Want to quickly share our CX Solutions Facebook group. This is an exciting group that we just started not too long ago. The whole concept of this group on Facebook is a private community where we can talk about all things customer experience, employee experience, user experience, and really give the people that are taking a lot of our boot camps. We have diversity inclusion boot camps and customer journey mapping boot camps. A lot of our participants, this is the area where they're able to really have those discussions, share best practices, give us their feedback, give us tools that they're using in their work environment. So I encourage you to hop on there. It's also the place where we host all of our recorded webinars. So this webinar, along with our others, will be in there, along with all the tools that we share. So in some of the webinars, we share templates and resources and things like that accompany the webinar, and they're all available in the CX Solutions Facebook group. We also have a lot of fun, exciting things that we've done during the pandemic. We've pivoted greatly. We've gone online. We're doing some fun virtual team building with a lot of organizations. So if that's something that you might be interested in, please connect with us. Journey mapping is a big one. We're mapping the customer journey as well as your employee's journey. Again, your employee experience is so different now than it has been before. So we are happy to offer customer journey mapping as a 2-day boot camp. And then diversity and inclusion has been a hot topic, as you all know. We've revised and reamped the program, so it's highly interactive. It gives you an opportunity to, again, ask a lot of questions, but diversity and inclusion really touches on 21st century challenges that we're dealing with today in diversity and inclusion. So excited about that. And they're all certification programs as well. So kind of exciting. Lastly, our customer experience mastery program is just launched. We're super thrilled about this. This program is an entire year program, but ultimately organizations will walk away with a solid foundation on how they can practice customer experience mastery within their organizations. This is not for everybody. It's only for leaders that are really committed to mastering the customer experience. Again, when I say customer, I mean your internal customer as well as your external customer. So at the end of a program like this, you'll leave with a solid foundation. You'll also leave with the tools, templates, techniques, everything you need for your organization to start implementing and executing customer experience mastery. So super, super thrilled about this. Last but not least, save the date. Our next webinar is September 17th at 11 a.m. And again, we're deep diving into CX mastery and what are those 7 steps, tools and techniques that you can use to practice within your organization. So thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you so much, my friend. And thank you everybody else for taking the time out. So we hope to see you guys soon. And that's a wrap, my friends. Thank you.